Alright, so Live Long Enough by J. Wilburn is the first story. Alright, and now I want to start it as late into the action as I can, so we're going to get right in. The creature's claw struck Sir Raiden. I'm going to be referring to my notes as we go along here. The creature's claw struck Sir Raiden in the breastplate, raising him off the horse and sent him flying. He hadn't started breathing again before he struck the ground with a metal clatter. Alright, he skipped across the, where he said grass. Okay, no. For the grassy, across the grassy field. Like a stone on the southern, let's capitalize that, on the southern sea. Let's say stuttered. He stuttered to a stop on a rocky bit of ground that, without his plate mail, I believe that's right, plate mail, yeah, plate mail armor, would have opened up his back. Raiden sucked in air that burned his lungs. The creature from the eastern stretches, I guess let's capitalize that too. Creature from the eastern stretches failed to crush the young knight's chest, let's say chest plate, or his chest underneath, but Raiden was surprised his lungs and heart hadn't burst from the impact. Okay. Forrester was an impressive warhorse, even without her rider. Human warriors in the ongoing conflict were intimidated by her size. The creature, with its bulk and monstrous proportions, dwarfed the mount. Forrester neighed like any frightened draft horse. And sidled toward the still water to the west. Alright, moving along nicely. Alright. The monster's hooves impacted. No. Monster's hooves quaked the ground as it galloped on two bent legs that could be mutations of a bull. This was no common minotaur. Okay, let's say this was no natural bull and no common minotaur either. I'm going to slowly describe this creature as I'm kind of moving the action along. Raiden rolled from side to side like an overturned turtle. He realized how much his chest hurt when he finally dared to move. He needed to rise or die on his back in this very spot. Alright. Okay, on this very spot. As he let's say as he pulled his legs under him, he lumbered to his feet, fighting for balance before he could consider fighting the monster, his lord and his new king had sent him to fight. Okay, I've worked out backstory on this, and because I've started into the action, I need to kind of filter that in without it being an information dump. Okay, so let's describe this monster a little bit more. Raiden suspected this beast barreling down upon him to attack again was meant to look human in form. Say to look partially human. Partially human in form, as some monsters did. The ones created by darker gods. Okay. There was hardly a passing resemblance, though. Flesh rolled over its joints. Flesh rolled over its joints. Hiding the kind of muscle required to move that much bulk at that speed. Alright, we'll have another action and we'll describe just a touch more so we can get a taste for this monster. Alright, Raiden stood but found himself as hunched over as the creature still coming. He gripped the hilt of his sword and drew it free with an effort. As much as his frightened mind could wander in that moment, he mused that if he had pulled his sword before being attacked, he surely would have lost it as he bounced across the field. The particular monster he faced, on its bull legs and hooves on its bull legs and hooves. Let's put commas in here because I'm going to put a lot of description. Had almost pillowy white fur over the rest of its body up to its twisted face, with one ear standing as tall and straight as Raiden's own sword. The other ear flopped. The other ear flopped to one side. The other ear flopped to one side. And bounced around the creature's shoulder as it charged. Okay. Raiden squared his feet and held the sword in front of him to make his own attack. The creature pulled up short. Sending clouds, come on now, clouds of dust into Sir Raiden's excuse me, into Sir Raiden's metal shell. Okay, the creature pulled up short, sending clouds of dust into shell. The monster heaved for breath that blasted the night in his face. Raiden wore his helmet, but had yet to draw closed the face protection. Alright. Not that it would have done any good defending against that hot breath smelling. Oh gosh, what am I doing now? Alright. I think I hit a control instead of a shift. Okay, smelling of rot and rage. He took in the full measure of the angry. Alright. I'm going to name this creature. It's a hob. Hold on. I'll pronounce it after I write it. Guvelatar. Alright, I'm going to copy and paste that in case I need to drop it again in the story. Control copy. He took in the full measure of the angry Hobkuvalatar, towering over him. Alright, without the, I don't need to capitalize all that. Let's make this all lowercase. So I'll recopy that. Control copy. Now we'll paste it in on here. It's the Hobkuvilatar swung bear-sized. Alright, that's going to be hyphenated, I'm sure. Bear-sized claws. That appeared distinctly like the paws of a rabbit. At this scale, Raiden would have preferred a bear or even a large wildcat. The monster roared out a garble of noise that might have been words in some language. Okay, Raiden whipped his sword from side to side. Raiden whipped his sword from side to side, threatening the claws with a scratch as the Kuvilatar threatened him with disembowelment. My computer definitely wants to send me warnings about things I have no intention of taking care of, so hopefully it'll settle down. Alright. The monster finally stood straighter. Than Raiden had been fooled into thinking, stood straighter than Raiden had been fooled into thinking it could. The beast reached over the knight's weapon with a level of grace and precision he hadn't prepared for. The claws sliced carefully, let's say with care, through the leather strap of on his helmet, and lifted it off before casting the metal aside. Okay, so Raiden heard it bouncing away, but dared not look dared not turn his head to track its course. He'd need to live before he could consider retrieving it. It must have bounced farther than he had, because he heard it strike several tree trunks. The Hobcovilatar dodged another couple weak swings and then tore furrows along one of Raiden's, I need to capitalize his name, Raiden's cheeks. The knight fell to his back again upon the rocky spot and lost his hold upon his sword anyway. Instead of finishing him, the Hobcovilatar turned its mighty back and we've already done lumbered with him and paced away toward the water once more. Raiden rose even slower than before. His gauntlet felt nothing as he touched the ribbons of his ruined face. Pain was too great for him to feel his own touch in any specifics in the flesh of his cheek. All right. Before he tried for his dropped sword, he pulled off his glove and touched his face with tender, bare fingers. It stung, and there were wounds, perhaps deep wounds. Let's use the correct there. Any author should be able to use the right there. Alright, and there were wounds, perhaps deep wounds, but it was nothing of the power the creature was capable of. Raiden had seen this Kuvlatar in battle before. It could have taken off his head with a single swipe, but it hadn't. Maybe some visage of their former friendship remained. Alright, so we have the first hint that these guys know each other and that they were on the same side in the past. The Kuvlatar reached Forrester where the horse had retreated to the sands of the shore, but had not yet abandoned its master in this one-on-one combat. Alright. Oh, the sun's starting to come up. We get to follow the day as we go through this 24-hour challenge. Alright, but not yet abandoned its master in this one-on-one combat. Hey, Vanilla, thank you so much. I'm going to try to keep this up during the day. We'll see how it goes. Alright. The monster wiped Raiden's blood in a smear across the riding gear on the horse's back. The knight. What I'm writing right now, I'm doing a story called Live Long Enough. It's about a knight who is fighting a monster, and slowly we'll figure out the backstory between the creature and the knight. And eventually I'm going to be trying to write as many stories as I can all day long. So this is the first one. I started around 7 o'clock, and we'll see how many stories I can do before January 15th becomes January 16th. So we'll see how this goes. The monster wiped Raiden's blood in a smear across the riding gear on the horse's back. Alright. Let's make that possessive. Alright, the riding gear on the horse's back. The knight neglected to pull his glove back on, but snatched up his sword with one gloved hand and one bloody hand. He hopped to his feet and ran through the field to try to save the innocent animal. Alright. The Kuvalatar slapped Forrester's, remember? Yeah, I'm spelling this right. Forrester's rump, and the animal ran up the slope along the shore with a bloody claw print on its backside. Raiden pulled up short, still, oh, I've already done that. Let's say Raiden, let's just say stopped. Raiden stopped, still in the grass, and watched the animal trot southward. Alright. He realized once the mount found its way back to, also congrats on the new book in May. Oh, thank you so much, man. We'll see how that works out. You realize once the mount found its way back to Shoreview, okay, well, to Lord Talon in Shoreview, they would assume Raiden was dead. Probably not a bad assumption, considering how things were going. Forrester stopped at the top of the hill. It turned a little, but did not fully face the action again. Alright. Okay. Did not fully face the action again. The animal bowed its head as if to crop grass, but then raised it and shook its mane as if losing its appetite. Okay. We'll save that. Raiden's heart sank at the horse's loyalty which probably spelled its doom. The Hobkovlatar turned about too quickly for its size. The monster's hooves drilled deep in the wet sand. It roared again. This time, Raiden was sure it was a word. Why? He started to speak, but his breath caught in his throat. And the point of his sword dipped. The beast tore away from the sand and parted the thick grasses. Okay, that's spelled right. Come on now. The thick grasses with a few determined steps. Raiden raised his sword once more for what it was worth, and Raiden raised his sword once more for what it was worth, and the beast stopped. It roared again. What might have been the word why. My lord, Raiden stopped again. Well, let's say he lost his voice again. Raiden lost his voice 2 words in. To any onlooker, it might have seemed the knight addressed the Hobkovlatar as nobility. How silly that would have looked and sounded under different conditions. He tried again. I'm pledged to Shoreview, and alright, so let's make a M dash. Alright, I'm planning to Shoreview and Shoreview pledged to Shoreham. The beast accused with a phlegmy. Let's see if I can actually spell that right. There we are. The beast accused with a phlegmy string of intelligible words. Raiden wished they had just been an angry roar once more. That would have been easier. My lord, Lord Talon of Shoreview has pledged his allegiance to the King of Solsteer. I am pledged to serve my lord in all things. Raiden. Now the Hobkuvatar seemed at a loss for the end of his sentence. The beast pressed forward another dozen steps, closing the distance by half. Raiden didn't speak, nor did he raise his sword. We both served the King of Shoreham against the villainy. Alright, let's spell villainy correctly. Alright, against the villainy and tyranny of the King of Solsteer. And not that long ago. The words, especially the multi-syllable, words seemed, no, I keep using seemed, rolled forth alien upon the Hobkuvatar's narrow tongue, but they hit the knight's heart with more force than the monstrous claws. Raiden shook his protected head. It brought pain and dizziness, but he kept his feet as the gesture brought no answer. The monster took one hooved step after another through the eerie, I can't spell eerie. Alright. But the computer can, so maybe the computer needs a byline on this. The monster took one hooved step after another through the eerie monster took one hoof step after another through the eerie silence of this interrupted battle. You came for me to recruit to the side of your traitor lord, or to kill before the next battle. Talon never liked you. Alright, let's use this animal's name. Never liked you, Jad. He does not believe you would. Talon never liked you, Jad. He does not believe you would change sides. The Kuvalatar took Raiden by his shoulders and the metal crinkled under the monster's grip. He at least recognizes honor, even if he has none. Raiden's sword hovered under the monster's belly. Raiden's sword hovered under the monster's belly, but he did not capitalize on the opportunity. Chad, the Kuvalatar of Shoreham, and loyal to its king to the end. Jad, the Hubkuvalatar of Shoreham, and loyal to its king to the end, lifted Raiden off his feet and level with the monster's pink red eyes. You do not even try to defend your lord's honor. Not to you. Raiden said as he hung in the air. Jad roared in the knight's face, blowing his hair back, and then leaned in with buck teeth to tear, sun's up, to tear open the warrior's skull, as he had done with any number of other fighters pledged to the growing empire of Saul Steer. Raiden swiped across with his sword in a limp-armed cut that fell almost as an afterthought. The blade was true and parted the soft white fur below the Kuvalatar's chin. The beast drew back from its bite and dropped Raiden to his armored back in the grass. Okay, let's make a new paragraph. Blood as red as any human. Blood as red as any human. Stained. No, I don't need a comma there. Stained Jad's fur. The monster threw back its head in a wordless roar and dropped all its weight down and forward, concentrated into its massive claws. The beast tore. Have I used beast in that paragraph yet? No, I have not. Okay. The beast tore the thick grass down deep into the topsoil. Let's say rich topsoil. Into the rich topsoil. That is a compound word. Okay. In a single strike. But the knight had found his feet and retreated far enough to live. The red rabbit eyes of the Hobkuvilatar met the blue eyes of the human fighter, now a creature of the kingdom of Solsteer. The beast, wait, let's do monster. The monster bounded forward, much like an oversized rabbit. The Hobkuvilatar was fast with its back hooves, stronger than any bull, but let's say young Sir Raiden still dodged with subtle ease and found himself at Jade's flank. Again, the knight did not opt to capitalize. Jade turned about and rose slow to his full height, casting a shadow over the much smaller knight. Shoreview is the largest fiefdom of the kingdom. Alright, let's capitalize that. The kingdom of Shoreham. No longer, Raiden said much louder than the breeze between them. We could have fought Solstier to a truce if we had held out a little longer, Jad said. Just a little longer. Shoreview. Lord Talon lost much being on the border of the front. Say the very border. Being on the very border of the front. He would have fallen soon, and then Solstier would have run over the rest of Shoreham. Coward. Jad growled with clear spittle flying from his pale lips. Okay, hold on. Some of the droplets beaded in the red stained fur from the only wound Raiden had placed upon his old friend. Okay. Traitor. I was going to use a cuss word, but I think we've avoided it in this story up till now, so it may be good to avoid it still. Coward, traitor. Wretches. Okay. The blood flowing from the knight's torn cheek had turned sticky and cold around Raiden's collar and down inside his armor. I wish I wasn't here. Jad flexed his claws. Okay, Jad flexed his claws and rumbled. I'll help you with your wish. Okay. The Kuvlatar flinched forward and let's say he feigned forward. Feigned forward, and Raiden flinched to the left. Jad spoke again. Are you proud? Do you consider Talon's switch of kings to be honorable? I serve. I do not second guess. I think you do, Jad said. Perhaps Raiden leaned forward a bit as he waited for the next word, but the Kuvlatar burst forward at him. The knight, okay, where did he go the first time? Flex claws. Kuvlatar feigned forward, flinched left, so he'll go right this time. The knight bolted to the right, but Jad, let's say the monster had anticipated that it was on him and tore a plate away from his left arm, but Raiden still managed to to retreat out of reach and angle away from the next set of claws. Let's spell the knight's name correctly. Retreat and angle away from the next set of claws without losing any more flesh or blood. Jad charged again, and this time Raiden opened the beast's flank. Jad charged again, and this time Raiden opened the beast's flank. The Kuvlatar growled in a tone that Raiden could not place to any natural animal. They clashed as they tore up and matted down the grasses of this unclaimed field. Raiden opened a few more wounds upon the monster, turning its fur from white to mottled red and purple. He did not get the better of every strike, but he stayed alive against a beast who had plowed through dozens of knights in previous battles. Raiden took a moment to glance at his abused armor. Dense, dense pressed against his flesh and bones. Tears opened through the metal in the shape of oversized claws. Alright. Around the openings, the metal had stressed almost to a snowy white hue. In other spots, the armor folded over itself and had darkened to black. He had no sense that Jad was going easy on him, so Raiden was surprised to still be alive, and did not anticipate being able to sustain this forever. He considered working his way to the horse up on the hill and riding away as quickly as Forrester could carry, despite the incentive for the animal, let's say mount, for the mount to give its all. Despite the incentive for the mount to give its all, Raiden knew they would not outpace the Kuvlatar very far. Still, he considered it. Thoughts of retreat melted away as Jad caught Sir Raiden with another full blow that lifted him into the air and tumbled him into the shallows, along the shore. Hey man, don't forget the coffee. I may need more than coffee by the time I get into the late hours. I will take some breaks from time to time, so I'm not gonna work myself into the ground, but we'll see how it plays out. Thanks for dropping in, man. Him into the air and tumbled him into the shallows along the shore. Even before he halted in the soft mud, he knew his arm was broken. He knew his, let's say his left arm. He knew his left arm was broken. Maybe not shattered, but probably in more than one place. Okay. The arm twisted away from him in a grotesque angle as he stood, and water drained out of the extra holes. The arm twisted away from him at a grotesque angle as he stood, and water drained out of the extra holes in his remaining armor. The water running down his body was a little too pink for his liking. He had managed to hold onto his sword this time Raiden was most surprised by that. Still, for all the good it would do him, as he could not seem to muster the energy to lift his feet from the soft mud, as he could not seem to muster the energy to lift his feet from the soft mud. And wait, I'll say nor could he hoist the broadsword in the grip of his good arm. Raiden stood shin deep in the lapping waves of the southern sea. Jad the... okay, hold on. Yeah, same paragraph. Jad the Hobkuvalatar stalked into the sands as for a moment the beast extended to its full height, showing many shallow wounds that still wept blood as, let's say wept, still wept blood. Okay. Still wet blood. Oh, come on. What am I? Have I lost my ability to spell? I guess I have. Still wet blood, as red as his own. But the larger creature had to slump over. But the larger creature had to slump over. In its hulking pose as Jad heaved for every breath. Raiden, let's say Sir Raiden. Sir Raiden took the moment. Sir Raiden took the moment to survey this ruined field. The damage wasn't terrible compared to the battles they had shared in the past when they both served the king of the shrinking kingdom, shrinking kingdom of Shoreham together. Long after Raiden was dead and forgotten under the preserving mud, these grasses would grow back over as if nothing of note had ever happened. This was the point. This shore along which Raiden would die, having failed to slay a monster he did not hate and wished he could still consider a friend. This shore that no farmer for generations had bothered to plow was what all this bloodshed was over. Little Shoreham, a kingdom better suited for peace, but in a world full of war and monsters, was simply in Solstier's way. Talon, no. Let's go a different direction. Lord Talon. Alright, Lord Talon had surrendered his allegiance over a letter, and Raiden had been a creature of Solstier in an instant. This was his punishment for that passive betrayal. Alright. As he waited even longer to die, Raiden pondered why he was... Hold on. Let's put this into Jad's mouth. Jad broke Raiden's fevered thoughts by asking, why do you think they sent you alone. Raiden blinked several times and shifted his weight on his cold feet until the bones of his arm hurt too much to move. It took him a moment to realize he had not misheard. I don't know. I think you do. I don't, Jad. So stop playing with your food and be done with me. Spare the horse, if any humanity can find root within you. Curse you for that, Raiden. Cursed indeed, Jad. Cursed to live just long enough to become everything I hate. Be done with it. I think I know. Jad spoke softly. Spoke soft. I think Lord Talon does not trust your honor. He has none, so he cannot tolerate one who has much. He sent you alone to die by my hand. Your loyalty he respects and covets, but your honor reminds him of his own dishonor, so he sends you to die. So do to me what he sent me here for. Your arm is broken badly, Raiden. so it is. Did you happen to bring a Kovalatar doctor with you? The monster drew back its lips in what might have been a smile. There was no telling. Clever to the end, but not observant enough. They might be able to set your arm if I got you to the doctors of the king. Which king, Jad? Raiden saw spots. No, let's not say that. He doesn't need to see them, they just need to happen. Spots danced through Raiden's vision, and if Jad kept talking instead of killing, he thought he might fall over on his own and drown in a few inches of quiet water. I prefer the king of Shoreham because he treated me like a person. Jad the Kovalatar said, I did not think I'd live long enough to see the day anyone ever would. So for that small kindness, I will fight for him until my last blood is spilled or Saul Steer gives up the fight. So finish spilling me, Jad. I'm tired. You'd rather die than serve the king you have loyally defended against the odds up until this day. I am sworn to Lord Talon of Shoreview, who is now pledged to the King of Solstier. If dying in this intimate battle puts that to an end, well, enough. Well then, old friend, Jad said, I'm sure the doctors in Shore View can set your arm well enough to steer a plow with honor. Well then, old friend Jad said, I'm sure the doctors in Shoreview can set your arm well enough to steer a plow with honor anywhere in the growing kingdom of Solstier. Not well enough to swing a sword as their knight, but after surviving this battle for them, they will have to honor you with that much. I might rather die, Jad. Well, I'll not be your tool in that, nor will I serve Talon's cowardice by I will not be your tool in that, and I will not serve Talon's cowardice by ridding him of the reminder of your honor. Jad turned away and paced through the grasses for the trees. It won't be comfortable, but I believe you can ride back to your lord alive. I'll fall dead along the way. I think you're made of better stuff than that. Jad the Kuvlatar stopped by the tree line. He raised his strange voice to be heard at the waters, to be heard, let's say, by the night at the water's edge. just hold tight to Forrester, and the good horse will get you home. Jad turned away and walked through the trees. The tops still moved to show the great monster's course. Long after his bloody fur was hidden below the canopy. Raiden forced one foot in front of the other and made his way up the hill. He dropped his sword, trying to climb on the horse's back. He could not get up, and he would not bend over to retrieve the weapon. Okay. Forrester snorted and lowered itself to the ground on bent legs. Well, that was kind of you, Raiden whispered. He crawled onto the war horse's back as Forrester climbed to its feet, climbed to its height. Raiden cried out because that is the alarm for my medicine. Alright, Raiden cried out because of his jostled arm. I'll be taking a break here in a minute to take my medicine. I'm a kidney transplant patient, so I gotta take that every morning, like clockwork. Alright, Raiden cried out from it because of his jostled arm, but held on with his good. He sweated and shivered from the pain and rising fever. As the horse plodded along the shore, He sweated and shivered from the pain and rising fever as the horse plodded along the shore. Raiden doubted he'd make it, but he held on because he had a responsibility to try, even if he might never fight again, one way or the other. He wished he had the sort of honor he saw in Jad the Hobkovalatar, or a fraction of the honor the great monster saw in him. Let's add one more sentence here. Raiden thought about the helmet lost in the trees, or the sword cast aside in the grass. Someday, one or both would be found. Some child or other traveler would cast about in their minds, coming up with a story to explain such a thing. He imagined there would be no way they would guess the true story.